Hello, I'm Jeff White. I'm an author and investigative journalist, and this is a series of videos about how to write a book, or at least how I write a book. I talked in the last video about the gears of writing, as I called them, the steps you go through, the researching, the writing, fact-checking, and then marketing. And we talked about how that helps you push through and keep the momentum going to actually get the book done. Now, what it also does is really helps you with the next step, which is creating a schedule of writing. Writing a book is a long process. And I want to say that again, it's a long process. So for me, from the time I start to the time when I actually have the physical product in my hands, that's about 2 years. In fact, it's almost exactly 2 years. And I'm pretty efficient. I'm also freelance, and at some stages I'm writing full time. So if you're watching this and you're thinking of writing a book, or you are trying to write a book, and you're also juggling a full-time or even a part-time job, it's tough and it's going to take you potentially years. I think you need to adapt that and get used to that. Now, there's just no way, if you've got a project that's going to take you years, that you can just start and amble your way through. I just don't think it's possible to finish it. You have to have some kind of schedule that you're sticking to, some kind of calendar that you're trying to follow. As I say, this isn't for everybody, but for me, it's really helped sort of break it down into steps. Now, breaking it down into steps also means knowing what's going to be in the book and what chapters you've got, because a lot of those steps are going to be linked to finishing particular chapters. Now, I know that's, again, not for every author. I know authors who start out with just the idea of a book and a rough idea, and then they do the research and work out the chapters later. That makes me break out in a cold sweat. For me, part of getting the book commissioned and pitching it is writing down the chapters and what's going to be in each chapter, what I'm trying to do with each chapter. So when I start writing the book, I already know what the chapters are going to be. Don't get me wrong, during the writing process, it comes and goes. A couple of chapters might drop out, one or two. Some chapters might come along that you didn't expect to be there, or a chapter might grow. But fundamentally, if when you start writing a book, you're not in a position to even sort of say, well, what it's about, what the chapters are and what they're going to be, perhaps you need to go back and do a bit more thinking and a bit more work on the planning for the book before you actually sort of schedule the kind of writing. Because for me, writing and having a schedule means a lot about knowing what's in the book and knowing what the chapters are. Now, the other thing is, because I've written before and because I've written books before, I know how long things take me. I know how long it takes me to research, how long it takes me to write a chapter and so on. And I'm aware people who are starting out for the first time don't know that. Put together a rough schedule would be my advice. Put together something, just guess at it, keep it going for a couple of months, and after a couple of months review it and see how you're going. So for me, in the book that I've just written, which is about money laundering, it's called Rinsed, I was looking at about 10 chapters, and I'd mapped those chapters out so I knew where I was going. Now, each of the chapters is going to be about 7 to 10,000 words is about right for a chapter for me. Some of the longer ones, 10 maybe up to 11. So I'm sort of working on that basis, 10 chapters. Now, there's going to be an intro and an outro and a bit of tidying up to do. So let's say 12 chapters. That's 12 chapters, that's a year. So if I can do one chapter a month, I can get the book done in a year. Now, that's obviously going to be 12 months, 1 month per chapter. So then I'm thinking, okay, if I've got a month per chapter, what do I do for that month? Now, I know that it takes me longer to research than to write. And so what I did was I allowed myself 3 weeks research time, and then the final week would be writing and fact-checking. So I know that I can write about 3,000 words a day, and I know some people are listening to that thinking that sounds like a lot. Yes, it does, but don't worry, the process that I'm going to map out over these videos will explain how that's possible. The reason I give myself 3 weeks writing research time and 3 days writing time is because the research is going to tee me up for the writing. I've got a process for how to make that work. That'll be in later videos. So 3 weeks research time, 3 days writing time, and then 3 days fact-checking time. So you're looking at about a month per chapter with a few days in between to catch my breath and catch up to the next one. So that is what I'm putting on my calendar. And this was the calendar I came up with. So yes, it is handwritten. I know, it's crazy. It looks like the kind of thing a serial killer would do. But for me, somehow, writing it down with a paper and pen really, really helped. I also scored off the weeks in pen, but I wrote out what I was trying to do in pencil because, yes, you always start to shift around. So I'd start to map out, this is what I've got to do each month, this is what I've got to do each week. This week is going to be basic research, then more specific research, then interviews, and I put that on the grid. So I can start to see what the year ahead looks like. And yes, it's slightly terrifying. But fundamentally at that stage, you've got something in front of you. You've got a schedule in front of you and you know what you're going up against. Like I say, for me, I've written before, so I know how this process works. For you, you're just going to have to come up with some kind of schedule, stick to it for a little bit and tweak it. What you don't want to do, and I'd strongly advise you not to do, is come up with a schedule that's too ambitious. If you think, oh, it'll only take me a couple of days to research this, now I'll get cracking, and you don't hit it, you're going to get demoralized. Accept it's going to take a long period of time. Give yourself, I'd say, more time at the beginning than less. See how you go. You can always shrink your schedule down later, but it's better, I think, to leave yourself more time than to be rushing and to feel demoralized and feel like you've underestimated it. Once you're organized, once you've got your schedule, once you've mapped out how long you're going to take for those key stages, the 3 stages, researching, writing and fact checking, marketing of course comes later, you can then start to get organized. But coming up with that schedule, sticking it down on a piece of paper and mapping out what that year ahead looks like is really important. One more thing I'd say is that there's a certain stage at which your control of the process starts to hand over to others, to the publisher mainly. So once you submit the first draft of your manuscript, the schedule from then on in terms of how long it takes to get it proofread and copy edited and page made and all those other things, that's not really up to you. That's going to be up to the publisher. But from now, when you start, until when you submit that first draft of the manuscript, that's under your control. And having a schedule will help keep it under your control. Which teases up for the next video, which is all about getting organized. Feel free to like, to comment, to share. Honestly, I couldn't give a toss if you do or you don't. I'm making these videos because this process worked for me. I like it. And if it helps somebody else do what they need to do, fantastic. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.